Hi, Long. So today I'm going to talk about basic web technology like DNS, type of DNS and how does it work, what is communication protocol, what is HTTP, what is server, operating server, what is website server. Also, I will discuss about static and dynamic website, front end and back end, PHP, ASP.NET, and the difference between custom build site and online creation tool. So first is DNS. DNS is short for domain name server. They are the same as phone book of the internet. It can translate domain name into internet protocol address or IP address, so the browser application, computer, and other device can interact with. There are three types of DNS. The first is DNS query, the second is DNS server, and the third is DNS record. In the DNS query, there are two types of DNS query. First is the recursive query, second is iterative query, and non-recursive query. The recursive query is when the DNS resolver must provide the answer when DNS client gives the host name. The response can be similar resource record or error message. If it cannot find anything, the DNS resolver will query the DNS root server until it can find the authoritative name server which holds the IP address that host name has requested. The iterative query is when the DNS resolver must provide the best answer it got when DNS client gives a host name. If its record has saved it cache, the DNS resolver will return it. Otherwise, it will guide the DNS client direct to the root server or another authoritative name server, so DNS client can query directly. Non-recursive query. In non-recursive query, the DNS resolver had already know the answer, so it will return the DNS request stored in cache or query it to the DNS name server that authoritative to ask the request. In DNS server, there are three types of DNS server. First is DNS resolver. DNS resolver or recursive resolver is designed to receive DNS query from DNS client and provide back an answer which includes host name like google.com, and it must find the right IP for the host name. DNS root server will take the top level domain or TLD, the user's query example like google.com, and with the detail for the .com to the TLD name server. In return, that server will give back detail for domain with the .com DNS zone. And finally, the authoritative DNS server, high-level server. In DNS order, define which DNS server is the authoritative name server, a specific host name. This means it will hold up to the data information for the host name. And finally is the DNS records. DNS records, there are 10 DNS records. First is the address mapping records or DNS host records. It will hold the host name and corresponding IPv4 address. Second is IP version 6 address records. Our host name and it will correct responding to IPv6 address. CNAME records as last as host name. If a DNS client required for the records that have a CNAME which point to other host name, the DNS resolution process will repeat a new host name. Mail exchange records is a server, email server that designed specifically for the domain, and it will route outgoing email to an email server. name server record basic specific which a DNS zone like google.com is to assign to a specific authoritative name server and give the address of the name server. Reserver lookup pointer record allow DNS resolver to give IP address and receive a host name. Certificate records keep encryption certificate like PKIX, SPKI, PGP, and so on. Service location is same as mail exchanger but for the other communication protocol. Text records carry data like encryption sender policy framework, DKIM or DMRC, and so on. Start authority. The record will appear at the beginning of DNS zone file and it will indicate the authoritative name server for the current DNS zone. Contact detail for domain administrator, domain serial number, and DNS information for zone should be refreshed. Now I will talk about how DNS works. The first is the query. When the user type example google.com in the web browser, the browser will send a query to the internet to find the correct website. A query is a best question to select the corresponding IP address to the matched domain name. The query will first interact with recursive resolver server that operating by internet server provider or ISP, whereas query or the third-party provider. The recursive server will know which server it got from the answer of query. Second is the root server. The recursive resolver will connect to DNS server called root server. The root server are located and work all over the world, and each one of them know about top-level domain like .com. To looking for the right answer, the recursive resolver will find using the root server for information. The TLD name server, every top level domain TLD DNS server store the address information for second level domain with the top level domain. When the query reaches the TLD server, the TLD server will provide back with IP address of DNS. The recursive resolver send query to domain name server. The DNS will know which IP address of which domain and send back to the recursive resolver. When the recursive server now know the IP address and the IP address of the domain and in the query, and it could tell the browser. After all this, the browser will request the website and retrieve the content by using the IP address. So what is communication protocol? Communication protocol is the format and rule of digital message that can require to exchange data in the between of computer system. It covers authentication, error detection and correction, and signaling. It can be described the syntax, semantic, synchronization, and analog and digital communication. What is HTTP? It's HTTP, or short as Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is a application layer protocol usually used in World Wide Web or WWW. HTTP use a client-server model which the web browser communicate with the web server that hosts the web by send over TIC IP to server and retrieve the web content. HTTP is widely adopted because it is stateless and connectionless protocol. What is server operating server? A server operating server or server OS is an operating server specialized in to run on server which are computer designed to operate client or server architecture to manage a request applied on the network. Server OS have to have enable and facilitate common server role like file server, mail server, web server, application server, database server, and print server. What is web server? Web server is referred to HTTP server software in the computer that provide website functionality. HTTP is a protocol of website, but HTTP server software like Microsoft IIS and open source Apache server can accept requests from browser and respond by sending back HTML document and file like web page. It also can exchange script which in server function like database storage and credit card authorization. Web server is not only limited on web, but HTTP server software can build into hardware to control panel for configuration or the device from any web browser. What is database server? Database server is application using client-server architecture in the backend system. Sometimes the backend call a database server to do data analyze, achieving store manipulation and other non-user specific tasks. So now I will talk about static website and dynamic website. Static website is first is static website. Static website does not use any external database and using HTML completely. This means the user will get the exact same information every website they visit. To update a static website, this means going direct to HTML and make exchange. The pro here is more easy to develop. It's faster in loading time and a small space size, and its code is non-interactive, but directly make with HTML code to update cannot perform complex function. The next is dynamic website. Dynamic website can generate contact between the user, for example, like Gmail. Each other have a different mail in the inbox based with the user interact. Dynamic website also easier for user to update without HTML knowledge. To update by using content management system. It's simple to update information with ease to interface. Dynamic website also use server-side language like PHP or Java and a database where all the media, page, and posts are stored. The pro here is content generated based on the user. It's easier to update with CMS, can perform more complex action, and its code is slower load time due to the increase of resource. More complex greater risk in a security issue. Now I will talk about front end and back end. Front end or refer to the client side in the where the user can see and interact with. It directly receives the back end capability the front end mostly is the web browser and everything the user can see and interact within the website. Front end include the design by some language like HTML, CSS, or sometimes the JavaScript. The Some tools and technology will be used for front end is Sublime Text. It's a code editor with super efficient and ultra speed up user interface. Or Chrome developer tools. It can edit HTML and CSS in real time or debug JavaScript while view through the website perform analysis. And backend is referred as the server side where user cannot see or interact with. Is how the site work and update. Commonly, people work in backend are programmer or developer. Backend is more about security, structure, and content management. Some tool or technology used for backend is Apache. It's an open source website. It is proven reliable tools that current used by more than 50% in on the website. MySQL is one of the most popular open source relation database and is easy to access, set up, scale fast, and is free. What is PHP? PHP or Hypertext Preprocessor or is an open source scripting language and server-side using developed website application. Website can be designed by HTML, which with the HTML code execution is done on the client side. PHP, however, execution in server before sending to the website. Its advantage are easily and quick scripting language on the server side for web developer. Widely used in large communities, so it's easier to find the answer for the error. Work well with database, file system, image, and so on. The syntax is familiar with other C-based language. There are not a lot of free support available. Its disadvantage are many special purpose form but not enough general purpose form. Existing database API hard with YDP vendor name into code. Constantly a problem with the new release version. Unpredictable type of system. What is ASP.NET? ASP.NET is a web development platform designed by Microsoft. It can be used for creating website-based application. ASP.NET designed to work with HTTP protocol and it can be written in variety of .NET language include C#, VB.NET, and G#. Its advantage is quick drag and drop. Pseudo hides the website cycle from developer. C# is much nicer on PHP. Validation and Ajax is pretty easy. Its disadvantage is ASP.NET can be get in the way if you know the web costs more in enterprise level and often obscure bugs relate to late abstraction. And finally, topic is the difference between custom build site and online creation tools. Building a custom website can give you full control and management in functionality and offer scalable solution. We can grow within the business the flexibility to make it change, to add new function to the website, user interface, and user experience will require skill of developer and resource. The more quality and experience and interface, more the cost. Online build creation tools, on other hand, we have the limit of what function it can do and the flexibility to change or fix something, and also it will slower in load time. Also, most of online build are based on Flash, so the thread cannot read it. It's not suitable for professional business, but it's very easy to export. Do not require the design of code skill. Anyone can do it with the already provide template. uh, so my presentation now here is done. Thank you for listening.